Hey everybody, welcome back. We're going to start today a little different than normal. We're going to go through a lot today. We have to talk about the SP 500, the breakouts in the NASDAQ, why the Russell's outperforming. But this has really been on my mind lately, and I just want to show you what's up 200%, what's up 100% since May, so you can kind of just get a lay of the land. There is a lot to go over today. We're going to dig into fundamental analysis. I want to explain who you should be watching in regards to fundamental analysis. One of the things I constantly work on with the stool and try to explain to you with the stool is the three legs, how it works and what you should be focused on. And I'm going to show you a really quick way that you can do this yourself, like super quick. I actually worked it out. But it's really important for me that people get this. I see a lot of information on YouTube and a lot of information on Twitter. And I have the saying, if you watch these videos, you've been watching it for some time, where you need to cull your feed. What do I mean by that? Who you watch and who you don't watch, who you listen to and who you don't listen to. First, you should always just listen to yourself more than anybody else, and then develop skill sets. As you're developing those skill sets, you're going to find little nuggets from people. Hopefully you find nuggets in these videos. This is really important to me. It's why I'm getting it out, because I'm watching people literally miss what could be bigger than the internet, in my opinion. And that's my opinion. So what I want you to get here is that this date marked is when people all over Twitter and YouTube were coming out and saying, CoreWeave and NVIDIA is a scam. This is when they were saying that and telling people that these things were scams. They couldn't possibly go any higher. Wait till the news comes out about how they're selling chips to themselves. All this nonsense, right? That did nothing but get them views for advertisers on their YouTube channels or get them subscriptions, whatever. Since this date, there have been billions and billions of dollars made in the stock market since May. Off of these just four, I'm only showing you four names. But if you just look from that date, AVGO is up about 100%, NVIDIA is up 100%, AMD is up 113%, SMCI, we know, had a great day. We're going to dive into this. We're going to go through what exactly is going on, what analysts you want to start paying attention to, why you want to start paying attention to those specific analysts. You can get them through a news feed. You don't even have to have research. I'm going to walk you through how to do it. We have to talk about the inflows, what's going on with Taiwan Semi, why that was extremely important, the inflows in the Taiwan Semi. So we're going to get into it, but I wanted to get that out of the way, and I want you to understand where this is going. This video is going to go deep. It's not going to go as broad as we usually do. We're going to cover some of the dollar and the ES today. We're going to jump right into it. It's going to be unedited because we're going to cover a lot of ground, so let's just get to it. So first and foremost, obviously, these names have been on fire in January. We're going to get into that, but let's just start rocking and rolling here and just get into the basics. Again, I'm going to keep this unedited because I have a lot of information to get through in a very short period of time to do, so we're just going to pack it all in. I set it up earlier, so I have everything set up, but I reworked a portion of it last night, and so time's got to come from somewhere, so it's going to come from the editing. All right, so we're just going to spend a moment here and say, how much value am I adding here by saying we're going higher, right? Probably not a lot of value. Probably shouldn't be spending a lot of time here talking about how smart we are as this breaks out. I will say this, in these kinds of environments, the NASDAQ always outperforms the S&P. NASDAQ always outperforms the S&P. But I do think it's important to note up, down through, up, lower low, so it looks like you're going to break, rallies, failed rally after a lower low, which is going to convince anybody that we're going to drop, and then we break out. Let's just drill into the weekly for a second and take a look at what's going on here on the weekly chart, okay? And you can see very clear rejection, bonk, bonk, rejection, tries to rally, can't, reversal, wick is to the what? The bottom. Wicks are what? Wicks are price rejection. All right, so we have that. Let's take a look at the monthly for a moment. And you're like, well, why look at the month? It's not closed. I agree, the month is not closed, but what do you have here developing? You have a hammer at the top of a chart. Now, if you just stay here and you don't go any higher, and you just stayed here, you have the hammer on the top of the chart. So what that means is that you're going higher, right? Just technically speaking, anything could happen. We have the Red Sea issues. We're not going to dive into any of that today. This is going to be a very hyper-specific video. You have an upper channel here. And depending upon how you want to draw that upper channel, technical analysis is as I like to say, it is a skill, and it's also, in my opinion, it's an art. So it is open to interpretation. But if we look here and just take the most basic of indicators, if I just go into some of my templates and we just use rate of change real quick, and it'll help me flip this over very simply. But rate of change is really good in my opinion, to use here and just see what's going on and where you are on the weekly. And you can just see that the rate of change is actually high and that it's been falling down. So we do want to watch that. Take a look at this on the monthly. If you look at from a monthly perspective, you're not anywhere near highs on rate of change. So this can go a lot higher. Rate of change is definitely a great one to see where you're at on longer time of momentum for sure. Definitely something you want to pay attention to. We're just going to dive into the NQ right here. Okay, so we talked about this a while ago. And I just find it humorous how this stuff always plays out later. But like, here's your cup, here's your handle. I remember getting a ton of grief in here from people. They're like, it's not a handle, it's not down far enough. Look, this stuff does not care what you think. It is what it is. You know, whether you're calling this a cup and handle, whether you're calling it a blueberry, it doesn't matter. Your job as a trader, especially if you're technically being a trader, you have to just look at patterns and start recognizing patterns. Is it one of these? Is it not this because it doesn't fit into that box? You know, there's levels of gray to this. What you're looking for is patterns, and you're basically looking for supply and demand. Okay, we know this pattern inside and out, inside the Alpha Chasers community. 1, 2, 3 down, up. This is the single most predictive candlestick pattern out there. You can just go get Bukowski's candlestick book. Okay, the Encyclopedia of Candlesticks, just any of these books, and they will walk you through the highest degree probabilities. Bukowski's does a great job of this. I'd read anything by that guy. If you're just trying to get a very basic handle on it, right? So these are rising threes, falling threes, and they're five. You need 5 to make the pattern. Anyway, where do you have a hammer going on up here? It's hammer time. Let's clean all that off, right? And don't worry, I won't break out in song. So if you can see how you're lifting here on rate of change, this is great. This is very different than what we were looking at earlier in the week. You know, one of my concerns last Saturday, and we should go through this so that you understand that. I'm just going to click through these. People ask me TradingView. Apparently you can follow people on TradingView, and I'll start posting some of these scripts on there. I think it's Arete 20706. Is what it is. Arete 20706. Where is this? I want to find this one chart. I have it set up in here specifically so I can just look at it at will. Probably should get a little more organized there, but let's do this on the weekly. So from a weekly perspective, you're starting to turn. These things are starting to lift up. I was right here and here. Let's take a look at this on the daily because this was my concern. Am I going to get to the zero line and lift? I don't know. I really don't know, but I'm starting to get that. So let's just drop this into a 4-hour and you start taking a look here, right? And you can just see how we held that level and how we're going from there. Let's take a look at this on an hourly. And you're starting to go, yeah, I mean, that really is holding in there, isn't it? Right? You hit that level and you bounce, drop into a 15-minute. I mean, up, down. See how you can just use these? And just remember, like an hourly bar is 4 of these, right? And just break it apart. 15-minute is 3 5s. Right? When you start knowing that stuff, you just realize that candlesticks, I'm not trying to blow your mind this morning, but candlesticks within candlesticks, right? That's like when you look at these bars, you have to realize that there's 6.5 bars in there. But, people say, oh, we'll use a 65-minute chart. Well, why do I want to use a chart that no one else is looking at? Silly. Anyway, as long as you're above the zero, maybe we're okay. I see these breaks. They're a concern of mine. People were talking about on Saturday, the new lows, the new highs. And NASDAQ had more new lows than new highs, and maybe that's an issue. You start getting to a point with this where everyone realizes the names that they must be in, and they start taking precedent. And that's, I think, what we saw a little bit of, and I think we started to see a little bit of panic from the funds, which I love when the funds panic. But I do want to go through these. We're going to clean off this real quick, and I just want to say, where are we in the pecking order of overbought, oversold? Well, stocks above a 5-day average, S5FD. Right, all we're doing now before we get into the names, I just want to get a lay of the land. Very short-term lay of the land, and hey, what's going on out there, right? Are we overbought? Are we oversold? Where are we on some of these levels? How do the internals look? Well, you're really in what? No man's land. You came down to the low end. You can get a technical bounce off of 7, meaning when only 7% of the stocks are above their 5-day moving average. You usually get a technical bounce in there. We didn't get that far, so we don't really have anything to work off of. S5TW, these are all symbols, by the way, that are in TradingView that you can do yourself. You don't need me. So you can just go here, 93, see how they're acting, right? Okay, just keep rocking and rolling here. I don't want to use that right now, but I want to go to this one and say, here's the 200-day, right? You got to 75, you backed off. Now, usually what's happening in here, and I've said this earlier, is when you get to this level, we've seen us back down and rally and back down. But again, for statistical significance, and all the statisticians that watch this know this, you need 30 data points for anything to have statistical significance. I don't have 30 data points. I have 4, right? So why it's done this repeatedly when it gets up to this level and then rejects. So I will go on the assumption it's going to happen again. There's no statistical significance that tells me that that's going to happen. And that's just a little nuance there that I think people need to be aware of. S5TH, stocks above the 200-day moving average. This telling you where you're at is exactly what you want to know. Hey, this is where I'm at. Last time I got here, or the past couple of years, I sold down. Good to know. But you don't want to go back here because we remember what this was, right? This is when they injected what? $1.7 trillion in the market. How'd that go? Everyone bought JPEGs, called them NFTs, and lost billions, right? Okay, now you have a monkey. All right, so now you go here, S5FI, and you can see right in here, 90, 90, 90, and it backs off, right? And that makes sense. When you get to the point where 91% of all stocks are above the 50-day moving average, you kind of look at it and go, and institutions look at this too, and they go, well, we're a little up there. And usually what are we seeing? We're seeing those backs off to what? That 1, 2, you get that peak trough, right? It's like ping pong. It just goes back and forth. I will say this. And looking at this is pretty accurate throughout time. Throughout 10, 15 years, this is pretty darn accurate that it doesn't matter if you have, the Fed just playing, loosey-goosey with money and just printing it because they can, or you're just in 16 or you're in 11, 13. It doesn't matter, right? It's pretty standard. So this is the one that most institutions look at, and it is the one that I pay attention to. It doesn't mean that you can't pull down, go sideways for months, and then drop again. And also doesn't mean that you have to drop, right? You can do other things before that happens. You can come down, rally up, but you usually get something like this. Now the question is, when are we getting that? I don't know. It could be weeks from now. It could be months from now. It certainly doesn't look like it's going to be Monday, barring anything that happens catastrophic over the weekend, right? It just doesn't look that way. All right, so now we have a lay of the land. We understand where we are in the S&P. We understand where we are in the ES. Very little reason to cover the Russell right now. Very little reason to cover anything like that with the bond market right now. In my opinion, yields are going a little bit higher. No one's going to care if companies are beating earnings by 40%. They're not going to care. But what we have to do is go out there and go, well, what was the best performing sector out there? What had to be technology, right? If we go and take a look, had to be technology. So what we're going to do is we're going to drill into one of 3 sector charts that I use. I use 3 separate ones, and I'll explain why I break them out here. So like you'll see this one has 20 in it. I have one that has 40 in it. But what we're going to do is we're just going to use this one. We're going to take the SPY, drop it down the line, and then we're just going to go out there on a 1-minute chart, and we're going to look at the day. And obviously, right, it's going to be really clear what's going to have broken out on the 19th. So let's just drill this down to here and take a look at that. Isn't that interesting? So semiconductors crushed. SMCI, which we're going to get into. We're going to get into Taiwan Semi. We are going to get into all this fundamental stuff in a minute. We're going to spend some time so you can understand. Yes, I'm bringing out the stool so that we can understand the fundamental part of the stool. If you can get what I'm going to put down here, you're going to be light years ahead of people. And I'm going to break it down so that you can do it very quickly within 3 to 5 minutes. It's going to be so simple. It's back envelope way to do it, but it gives you an edge, not like the full thing, but it gives you an edge that you can utilize. So here you are on the 19th. You just take a snapshot and go, XLP. Well, there I am with my organizational skills, having that in twice. And you're going to have to listen to a little bit of coffee, so I apologize. But here's the SOX. Isn't that interesting? I wonder why that happened, right? Well, we were told that because of this BTFD, where they're borrowing money at record rates, we were told that there's a lot of problems with regional banks, but we went through this a couple weeks ago, didn't we? Where we explained that they're actually borrowing from that one fund to lend money back to the government and take money from the government and lend it back to them. Gotta love the government, right? Anyway, regionals to me look like they're gonna go on a tear, but we'll do that Monday, Tuesday, because I want to stay hyper-focused on this. Okay, so now we know the SOX is breaking out. XLK, Apple, all of a sudden people love it because someone told them to. And Microsoft is pushing. You had a really nice note on Microsoft out of Goldman. I don't think we'll have time to get to it today, but they were just explaining how they are just going to benefit so much more from AI than people think. Financials are up. So I'm taking a snapshot on the 19th of what happened. All right, let's just go back to the 18th and take another snapshot and go, well, what happened here? The SOX, XLK, KRA. Okay, so for the past 2 days, this has been going on. Let's go back to 3 and see if we can see any kind of shift. No, we're pretty much in the same boat. So for the past 3 days, this is really where we're at. Let's just go back to the 16th for a second. All right, anybody see a pattern yet on what exactly is happening here? All right, do you get it yet? So this is where the money's been going all week, right? All right. So why is this important? And just to go back, so that here's the 12th, right? And obviously it's going to be up now. But why is it important to get this? Why is it important to understand where the money's been going since the 16th, right? Because this has been telegraphed. This is why I'm doing it this way. Remember this, because we're going to go look at some other charts in a moment here. This whole move, if you just take a look at how this is acting, where you've been during these days, right? You can see here again, higher, highest. Well, how has this been going on? Because this was telegraphed earlier in the week. And I'm going to show you, in my opinion, how this was telegraphed on the 16th. And I don't think a lot of people actually picked it up. And we saw the move in AMD and we saw these moves, but we didn't get it. Maybe some people got it, maybe some people didn't, but let's just say collectively we didn't get it, all right? We did trade these names, and you can, if you're in the community, you already know, but it doesn't matter. So now we're gonna go to the next one. Before I go to all sectors, I have a secondary sector list that I'm gonna look at. This is why people, I think, are asking to follow. I'll find a way to put these in scripts. I have them in here as indicators, but if you know how to do that, just comment below and let me know. So this is going to give me a larger snapshot, which is going to have some other things in here, like IGV is going to be in here, XLE. I have a more broader look at the market, right? And I also have the Qs in here and IGV. So this is where it gets interesting. So there's a gentleman, there's actually a couple of them in the room that are actually, it's like semiconductor engineers. And when they've been telling me for a very long time that the one thing that we're not understanding, you might want to remember this, because we were trading Dell earlier. They're saying IBM, Dell, the build out that's coming because of AI is going to drive those basically, those thoroughbreds, those horses. So I thought this was interesting. I think this is worth your time for me to bring up. But again, what are we doing here? We're taking data, we're sorting the data out, and then we're just saying, where are they putting money? So what are we doing again? We're taking data, we're sorting the data, and all we're saying is, where are they putting money? No judgment. Like, let's say utilities were up here. Well, maybe we should be buying utilities, right? You don't need to tell the market what it's going to do, guys. You just have to do what the market's doing. It's very, very different, right? Stop tying your ego to it. Like if semis were getting smacked and AI was a bust, I would go, oh, well, it looks like AI really was, nothing. It was just rock'em sock'em robots, and now we're on to the next thing. It is what it is. Duck, you have to be like a duck. It's just water off your back. It's nothing. So don't tie your ego to it. Anyway, look at what's going on right here. We can all see this, right? We can all see how this is playing out. All right, perfect. So we know where the money flow is off 20. Now, this is kind of where it gets a little goofy, but I have about 40 names that I'm going to show you right in here. And out of these 40 names, it will sort from the 16th, and it will show you out of 40 sectors, 40 sectors, right? Since the 16th, 40 sectors, meaning all the subsectors. So I have like really super subsectors in here, like the pot ones. I'll have like, here's commodities. I'll have like the home builders in here, med devices, everything, right? I'm actually going to create one of these that has like 180, 190 of my own. I have my own sectors like that I've set up. I'm trying to figure out how to get my own sectors into TradingView and then share them. I have like 180 or 190 of them. Anyway, we're working on that. I can put them in, but I don't know how to name them yet. So if someone knows how to do that, comment below. If you have like a video, someone that created that, I could watch that. Because I know how to add them where I can just type them all in and then hit a button. But I don't know how to add like 30, 40 names in and then call them like Bob or whatever I want to call it, right? All right. So what's going on here? Okay, so I have 40 different sectors and we're sorting. What's up? SOX, XLK. Q's outperforming. Don't know what to do. TQQ might not be the worst idea. Probably better than a stick in your eye. IGV up in there twice because of my organizational skills. FDN, right? So you start going through these, okay? And if you ever don't know what one is, let's just go back to plain. All you would have to do if you have access to it is just type it in and it'll tell you what it is. You just go FDN. I wonder what that one is, right? And then I'll just tell you, well, that's First Trust Internet Fund. And then all you'd have to do is just go, well, that's not helping me. Right? Well, maybe I just buy that. Or what you would do is just go, I wonder what the top 5 names are in FDN, and you would sort by there, right? Because people always ask me when I show you this data, and I go, well, you know what this means. And then someone in the comments will always say, no, we don't know what this means. And, I apologize for that, but after you've been doing this for a couple decades, you just think that everybody, you think you know something, so you think everybody else knows something. That's how my mind works anyway. So it is what it is. But so you would just kind of go through the top 5. I'm not going to do it right now. Sort what's going on there. Maybe you'd even take a step back and look at just the volume and say, hey, I wonder what's going on with the volume. Is this something I need to play with? Well, Friday, you didn't really have to give it any love, but you might want to go, what the heck happened here? And go see if there's something in there that came out with earnings that day. And maybe you don't buy FDN. Maybe you buy the name that did that day, right? So that's what you would do with the information that I just presented for those that are going to ask what they're going to do with it. So I hope that makes sense. Now, let's dig into it, and this is going to be fun. So let's just start with AMD. We're going to clean this chart up, and then what we're going to do is just use the simplest of indicators, right? Gotta love this. So again, this is a 12, this is a 22, this is a 55. You should use what you're comfortable with. Here's an RSI, as you can see right there. And you know what we could probably even do now is just drop that in and just look at the volume. Is the volume getting bigger, right? You see what's happening here? They're starting to panic. Okay, who's they? That'll be the next question. Institutions are starting to panic. They're out of position, and they're realizing they're out of position. Well, how do you know that? Well, this is how you know that. Because you and your boys, right, and your Robinhood accounts did not create the second greatest volume in AMD, right, in the past year and a half. Okay, it's institutions that are doing it, right? It's not your buddies on FinTwit, right? It's not your friends. Like, it's just not. I mean, just do what it is. You closed at the high. Who buys at the end of the day? That's why the closes are so important. Who buys? Institutions buy at the end of the day, right? They start buying at a dentist's favorite time. What's a dentist's favorite time of day? 2:30, right? There's your dad joke for the day. So you always can just start looking at like 2:30, right? Get it? 2:30. And you just start looking here and you're seeing how you start rising right into that time, right? You can just go through charts at any time of day and just start looking, right? 130. Well, we know that was the bond market, but I'm not going to bore everybody with the bond market trade this video. But you might want to go back and look at those past videos because that's going to be a lot of fun this coming up week as well, especially going into the the Fed meeting in 2 weeks. Anyway, look at the volume coming in there, right? All right. So now you've got your push, and you can see how you're rising. We can come here and look at the weekly, and we can feel super smart as we see the patented middle finger, pattern here. And you have no wicks on either side of that. So as people in the community made me extremely proud when they knew that that was a Marbuzu white. You do not play with those, okay? You do not want to bet against that particular pattern and that particular bar on a weekly chart. I wonder if there's any other ones we might want to look at. I don't know, NVIDIA seems to have one too, right? Okay, SMCI, I wonder how they look. By the way, this was over. Like, that's my line on a weekly, 19 million. Right? You were 2x my weekly line, 2x, and you're not even overbought in the weekly chart yet. But sure, tell me it's too high. We'll get to that in a moment. But you can see this right here, and this was SMCI's NVIDIA moment when NVIDIA broke out and people are getting it. And we're going to get into all that and why specifically you need to pay attention to this. Yeah, it's going to be pretty obvious to me. I think it's going to be pretty obvious to you too by the time we're done. So, all right, so here you are and you're lifting and you're breaking out. All right, so there's SMCI, there's NVIDIA. Okay, AVGO. Well, why is this one moving? We're going to get to that too, right? But you don't have the volume there. Why? Because people don't get it yet. You're above average volume, but people aren't getting this yet, and they will get it. And I think that we saw an upgrade, very quiet upgrade that they didn't make a lot of noise about, but they did it internally and then they put it on the tape. We're going to get to that in a moment, but I think they're doing that for a reason. I don't think they're making a big deal of it just yet because I think that they're trying to get people in because they're behind. Goldman put a buy on it. We're going to get into it. But Goldman put a buy on it on a $1,300 target price, and they didn't get too into it. They put it on an internal note. I think I took a copy of it, and then they put it on the wire. The reason I'm saying that is I think Goldman's out of position. I don't think that they're in the right position here from where they usually are. They're usually leading. They're usually ahead of things, and I don't think they are, and we're going to get into that. But this is what's leading. These are the semiconductor names you have to pay attention to. And I think we need to spend a moment now to start understanding the fundamental side of this. Now, for those that are newer, this is how we view the market. There is a macro side to the market. There is a fundamental side to the market. There is a technical side to the market. And when you're sitting on your bar stool, which someone has informed me should have 4 legs, not 3, but this is what it is. But we could go here. Maybe I'll call one of the legs 1.7 trillion. But we have a macro environment right here, a fundamental environment, technical. Sometimes you're leaning on the macro leg. Sometimes you're leaning on the fundamental leg. And sometimes you're leaning on the technical leg. If you've ever sat in the bar stool, you know that you shift your weight on it, and that by shifting that weight, one leg of that stool is supporting you more than another. I hope that makes sense. That's why when people are sitting here going, for example, when people are doing this kind of stuff and saying, like the ES, and I'll come back to this in a moment, but I just think this is a very important concept for people to get, right? Why is it important? Because people that are looking at the chart, there is nothing technical that's telling you you're going to stop here. Sure, someone's going to point at something and say, I know because of my blibbity blob indicator and you should pay me $75 for it, right? By the way, if anyone's ever telling you to give them money for an indicator, it doesn't work. So I just saved you money. I have private indicators that I just would not sell, and I do share some of them. But if anyone's ever telling you to buy their special indicator, just run away screaming and go buy yourself a nice steak. If you eat steak, if you don't, I don't know what to tell you. But so you can see right here, right? This is where the Fed is. This is where the Fed says, hey, by the way, we're going to stop injecting capital. Oh, really? You're going to stop? Now you're going to stop? All right. So, all right, I won't go down that tangent. We're going to stop injecting capital here, okay? So there's nothing here that is going to tell you that technically you're done. Someone's going to point at this, like me, and I'm going to say, well, it's this, and that's a negative divergence. So it was telling, yeah, but that didn't tell me that Wednesday was going to be the high. This told me that I need to start being cognizant of what's going on, right? But that doesn't tell me that I have to get out because I have a negative divergence. It's just telling you, whoa, put the brakes on there, and just let the world go by. But let me get to my point. So the point that I'm getting at is, why do you need to understand what leg is leading? This is a macro leg. This all went up. All this went up, right? All of this went up. Why did all this go up? Because the Fed injected 1.7 trillion. I know I say it a lot, but it's really important for me to get people to understand they're not that smart, right? Because when you understand that, then you can do something about it. That's all that happened here. The Fed just bought everything with you. Okay? That's what they did. And they created an utter mess. But anyway, so here you are. That's why you peaked macro. Where was the bottom of the market? Right there. Now, don't believe me? Why that was the bottom? Go look at when peak CPI happened. That's when peak CPI happened. What happened here? Because the market's going down. So I wonder what happened right there. Oh, that's when Powell came out and said that he's not going to, we're not going to raise rates anymore. We're done raising rates, it looks like. Oh, that's what happened there. What happened in December when the market started pushing again? That's when he said he's probably going to have to start cutting rates. All right. So it's really important for you guys to get this concept. This is why you need to understand. I don't care if you do Econ 101 and you just want to know those portions of it, right? Again, cull your feed, watch who you listen to, right? Because people tell you cutting rates is bad. Go show them, go ask them what happens when you cut rates in an increased productivity environment. And then ask them if cutting rates is bad, right? Tell them to go take a look at February 1995 and tell me what happened to the market for the next 5 years when they were cutting rates and increased productivity. Do you think that AI is going to increase or decrease productivity? All right, so let's just keep going here. This is why that's important. So then you go into here and you go AVGO, right? And that takes us back to this. All right, so now we're back to the stool, and now you understand that was a macro situation where you had a beer and then you're leaning a little forward on the stool and your butt's down here, right? So you're leaning on that one. Sometimes you're going to sit upright. You're going to lean on the fundamental side of the market, okay? And something is going to be a fundamental driver. Why would that happen? Well, let's just say somebody made like a great piece of chocolate, right? And everybody wanted to buy that chocolate. And because everybody wanted to buy that chocolate, that what happens? Well, all of a sudden you get this. Everybody's buying chocolate. Why? So what's going to happen to the revenue of that chocolate company, right? Everybody loves a Hershey's bar, right? All right, so I'm just devil's advocate, guys. So no read the comment if you don't like Hershey's. And if you don't like Hershey's, I can't help you. But if you see this right here, okay, that's revenues and earnings. They're screaming, they're going higher. Well, if revenues and earnings are screaming and they're going higher, stocks are going to go higher. I'm going to save everybody a lot of time with this. If revenues and earnings consistently go higher and beat expectations, those names will go higher. There is a great book. I don't care how you feel about the guy politically, but Soros has a book called The Alchemy of Finance. And in it, his single greatest trades are understanding when this happens and when it's going to start and when it's going to end. And he calls it reflexivity. But this, it's absolutely fascinating that something so simplistic, and that's what he would spend his time on, right? He was trying to be first. And when you're managing that kind of money, you need it. For us, we're not managing billions. So we don't need that, right? We can watch it happen and then get involved. And most of us don't have a team of 10 analysts crunching every company out there. So we understand now that the fundamental picture is what's driving the market right now. So I'm going to say that again. We understand that the fundamental picture is driving the market right now. So if we understand the fundamental picture is driving the market, then analysts that are ahead are where we need to focus on. All right, so how do we find out who's ahead? How do we get ahead of that? Now, this is how you use fundamental analysis, and this is where it gets fun. So this note hits on Tuesday, and all these names move, right? They all move, and they moved excessively. Now, what was interesting about this is, why did this guy, right, this analyst that works at this bank, why all of a sudden did everyone care what he had to think? When did KeyBank become the axe? Right now, this is how you refer to analysts, or how we used to refer to analysts. I'm in my late 40s, and this is how we used to refer to them. There's an axe, right? So back in the day, semiconductors, you'll see this guy on TV all the time. Back in the day, in the late 90s, it was Dan Niles. Like, he was the axe. If he said something, it most likely was going to happen, right? He was like that plugged into these companies. And why I'm saying this is, your goal on the fundamental side is who to find out who the axe is. And what do I mean by that? Who's that plugged in? And or the guys will hear me say this comment in the room all the time. I always say, all right, we're dialed in. meaning what we think is going to happen is actually happening, right? Oh, we're dialed in. Or like there was a time, I'll give you a time where I wasn't dialed in. I did a RTY trade and the bond market was rallying and RTY was dropping and I couldn't figure out why. So the trade was wrong. I was wrong. I got to get out, right? I'm not dialed in. What I think is supposed to happen is not happening. Get out of the way, move on with my life, right? Okay. You're always looking for the guy, especially when you're dealing with this kind of stuff, that's ahead. This is where I think you have to take this. So this comes out Tuesday. Anyone that has access to like Bazingo or your Thinkorswim would have access to this article. Right? It doesn't matter. And that's why I'm doing it this way. So the number one thing for you to do is start paying attention to fundamental analysis and start looking, whether you're doing it while you're trading or after the day, spend 5 or 10 minutes and look at the upgrades and downgrades that are happening and the comments that are on the tape that day on the stocks or sectors that are the hottest at this particular time. Right now, it's the AI names are the hottest. You know, a month from now or 3 months from now, it could be the burrito industry. It doesn't matter. Your goal is to find out what the hottest sector is and then find out who the axe is in that sector. You really want to listen to this again. Once you understand that, like I could have cared less about John V. Like I could have given, if that's how you pronounce this name, like could have cared less. I saw the article, I was like, and everyone in the room knows, I'm like, oh, it's not Goldman, it's not Morgan, it's not JP Morgan. Like I wish him the best. And then what happens? These names, they explode. So when they explode, my technical response was, whoa, I'm out of position. I don't understand something. Everybody's listening to this guy. And this is happening right before Taiwan Semi. Now, Taiwan Semi's coming out with their piece. When Taiwan Semi's coming out with their piece, a day later, I got Goldman telling me UMC's cutting production on certain chips. So I'm going into it saying, Goldman's saying they're going to, UMC's a foundry. So now I'm going, okay, well, I'm listening to Goldman. This guy's probably out of pocket, right? You know, maybe he's right on something, but why would you say DRAM and Qualcomm? Like, this doesn't make sense. So I'm out of pocket. I'm wrong because I'm listening to the wrong guy. So my presumption going into it, now I took we did a trade on Taiwan Semi before earnings and it actually worked. I actually showed you guys the trade. We bought the 105s calls. If I have time, I'll walk through the trade. But we actually did that trade and did exceptionally well with it the next day. Then we paid 2 for them. They opened up at 6. But now you know what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to, because people always say, you give me this information, what the heck do I do with it? Your goal is to go to your news services on the hot sectors, be it burritos, semiconductors, AI, whatever, and see who's saying what, and then see what happens. Sometimes it takes a month or two for you to figure it out, but you'll get faster and faster at it. You'll develop this as a skill, and you'll add it as one of the arrows in your quiver. So you'll have a technical trading side, and you'll start understanding which analysts were actually right or wrong. That gives you another thing. So like now when this guy speaks, right, and you see those E.F. Hutton commercials, I know I'm old, but like if you saw those E.F. Hutton, like when he speaks, people are going to go, well, isn't that the guy that basically just said Taiwan Semi, you know, he said he upgraded all these. So I said this Wednesday night, I said, this guy's, the way that these moved, he must have had some kind of internal call or something. I know people say, oh, that's inside information. Okay, well, you can live in Candyland. He did something where these guys got it and institutions got it because they were buying the living heck of Taiwan Semi. And I showed you this 2 days before or a day before, actually the night before Taiwan Semi, where from 2 o'clock on, it was straight up. So something happened here where this leaked. And maybe it was his channel checks that showed it. I don't know. But the bottom line is by doing this, you have an edge. And I'm going to show you more of this because I think it's pretty interesting. Just taking a look at this, he raised all these target prices, 740, 195, 75, 115, 165. He did this before Taiwan Semi. He did this, okay, before SMCI. He did all this. That's really important to know. That might be somebody you might want to just start paying attention to. I should probably reach out to him, see if I could get him on. I don't know if these guys will come on a show or not. Might be interesting to talk to him, how he did it. Anyway, according to KeyBank Supply Chain Investigation, the findings were mixed, indicating overall weak trends in the broad end demand. There's inventory destocking in auto industrials. EVs are hosed. The PC industry remains stagnant. iPhone trends are weak in China. Traditional server demand is also slow. Yeah, because they're switching the servers over, mentioned by Vin. If that's not how you pronounce his name, I apologize. Smartphone demand was sustained. Android. I don't know who has an Android. Anyone ever see the green bubble? Anyway, Vin says he sees positive implications for AMD, meaningful inflection demand in the MI300X AI accelerator, positioned on track to derive $8 billion in data center sales. I wonder who makes data center products. Geneva, AVGO, by the way. All right, you might want to look at AVGO. Geneva server processor will likely continue to share Intel's Corp versus Intel's Corp Sapphire Rapids, giving AMD 30 to 5% market share. The implications of NVIDIA are mixed, as the company's AI forecast for the second half of the year is likely due to overall diversity capacity. Capacity. Okay, remember this. AI forecast for the second half of 24 is likely due to desire to diversify its capacity. All right, we're going to spend a lot of time on this, guys. Despite the reduction of AI capacity as well as the excess street demand, $100 billion in data center revenues. I wonder who makes data center products. Semiconductor price action, shares rose, fell, whatever, right? Got it? Okay. So now we have this on Tuesday. I'm going to pull one more article out. Now, this is Thursday. So now you know fundamentally how you're supposed to utilize this information so that you can make more informed decisions. I hope that helps. The sky-high demand of NVIDIA. This is just from Bazinga. I just grabbed it from there. It was just easier. May pause, but the chip maker stocks will continue to soar. Valuations may give pause, but the stocks will continue to soar. NVIDIA's high valuations, Stacy told CNBC, keeps rising, blah, blah, blah. $700 price target. Trend will continue to drive company's performance. Pointing out last earnings showed a 279 increase in revenue on the year. Okay, if your revenue is going to continue to do this, your stocks are going to go higher. It's really that simple. It just stop worrying about the PE, the price to sales. No one buys on that stuff, right? They just don't. If their valuation and that's their model and they have to because that's in their charter, then that's great. But it doesn't matter, right? When this comes to an end, yeah, this is going to be super ugly. Like super ugly, like 99, 2000 ugly. But if you watched what Druckenmiller said on Bloomberg, and I showed you that a couple months ago, just Google in YouTube, just Google Druckenmiller Bloomberg AI, and you'll find it. Also, there was a JP Morgan analyst that I showed you a clip of. He walked through this whole thing on how long this can continue and why. And it can go much longer than the internet. And he explains why. It was their head of asset management. It was on Bloomberg Live in the morning, I think around November 23rd or 24th. He noted other companies in the same space, AMD, Marvel, much more expensive. It's actually, if you believe, one of the cheapest ways to play. It actually is, depending upon how you look at it. I put that out 2 weeks ago and said, tell me if NVIDIA is more expensive or cheaper now. Nobody commented. The thing is, it's cheaper now than it was, even though the stock's up because of the amount of money that it makes. You have to go and take a look at how the revenues have literally doubled in 6 months. It's absolutely insane. All right, so we get this, right? And now we understand that. We understand why some of these names are running. We understand why AMD went up. And let's go look at the dailies while we're doing this, because this is where it's going to get super interesting. So now we understand how we're supposed to utilize that fundamental analysis. We're supposed to understand what what that fundamental analysis is telling us, right? So we have this. And let's just go through it. So this is Friday, right? Friday, Tuesday. Okay, so this is KeyBank. That's a heck of a move for KeyBank raises target prices. Huge move, right? It's not like everyone knows KeyBank and they're all paying attention to what KeyBank analysts say. So something's going on there. So let's go take a look at this for a minute and just go 5 minutes. And then we're going to clean up let's just make this a plain chart. And I'm going to let's leave the vol in and let's take this out. And I appreciate your comments that I can just leave these unedited and talk the way that I am. Candidly, it makes it so much easier. So I really do appreciate everything. It does make my life a little easier. And what we're going to do is we're going to drop this to a 1 so we can really see it. So what are you talking about? Well, here's the day. Let's get rid of this now. Here's the day before earnings. There's 149. And what happened? Out of nowhere, it just starts getting acquired. Taiwan Semi, just out of nowhere. Now, I've got Goldman. This is where we go back to the stool. I've got Goldman telling me UMC. UMC is another foundry. There's actually one of the second biggest foundries, third biggest foundries. Maybe Samsung's a little bigger, I don't know. But Taiwan Semi, just straight up. So then you go there and go, that's 17th to 18th. Put it on a 5-minute chart. I mean, is it that obvious? Was it really that obvious? I don't know. Was it that obvious? You had 2 red bars from 2 o'clock on. Every hour, you have 12 bars, right, on a 5-minute chart. And what are they going to do, give you 1 to make you feel good? Just constant buying, right? Who buys on a 45-degree angle? We used to talk about this all the time. Institutions buy on a 45-degree angle. There you go, right? This doesn't get any clearer than that. Okay, so here you have Taiwan Semi doing Taiwan Semi things. We actually bought the 105s, did very well with them, came in the next day, and all of a sudden we're super smart, and now we're seeing it sit right in this level. You're into the gap, and we can see how this is going to rise. The point that I was getting at with Taiwan Semis, there's a couple things there that were very interesting, but let's just cover the basics. And this is why I said we were going to go deep, right? We're focused, hyper-focused. Taiwan Semis rose pre-market after signaling return to healthy growth this year. So let's just read what they're saying. A return to healthy growth this year. Not, hey, we had a good quarter, return to healthy growth. Signs of recovery. Profits fell less than feared. AI is the main driver. We see revenue growing as much as 25%. Okay, they were looking for 19%. You're coming in at 25. They beat and raised guidance, 113 resistance. That's what I put in the community. We were talking about this the next day. So you're probably going to gap fill to that level. So if you're looking to trade this, watch 115.95 and then get through it and go from there. And you come in here. Boy, I bet you Warren's pissed he sold at 80, right? So you look at this and go, okay, well, this is the area that you'd have to focus on where you could have some problems. So if you're going to trade Taiwan Semi, right, and you wanted to get involved with it, what you would do is you just want to watch that area. If I can find this thing right here. I used to have this thing that would highlight that area quickly. There it is. So that's going to be kind of your area where you're going to have a little bit of a problem, right? Right in there. Okay, because that's where you have all your minutia. But if you can get through that, you probably have a shot at challenging up there at the way this is going. In earnings, that's a pretty big change in revenue for a company like that. All right, so now we understand what's going on with Taiwan Semi. And this allowed us to understand what was going on the next day with what? Well, that makes sense why NVIDIA went up, right? So now we know why, not Friday, but now we know why NVIDIA went up on Taiwan Semi. Now we know why AMD went up because the majority of AMD chips get made where? Right, by Taiwan Semi. Okay, so this all starts making sense, right? You start looking at that and it starts making sense. And what's like, this is super fascinating to me about Taiwan Semi, by the way, here, take a look at these. So what we're looking at here is Taiwan Semi, and you're looking right here at Taiwan flows. These are Taiwan Q flows, right? These are all from outside. Okay, so these are all outside. Look at the money going to Taiwan Semi, other tech. I thought this cross was fascinating. I think if you go back and look at where this cross happened, I'm a little bit of a nerd. Remember when I showed you the very first slide in May and said, call your feed, watch who you listen to? That's how we started the video. Look when this cross happened in Taiwan Semi, where flows started going more into semiconductors, right, into TSM than other tech in Taiwan. Do you find that fascinating? I find it fascinating. Meanwhile, people domestically in Taiwan could really seem to care less about Taiwan Semi. These are, just to give the reference, these are both from Goldman. But I thought they were interesting and I wanted to share them. So hopefully you like that segue. So now we understand that Taiwan Semi was stronger and that's why AMD went up and that's why NVIDIA went up and that's why SMCI stayed where it was and didn't go anywhere because they weren't affected by it, right? Okay, this is where it gets interesting. If you watch this video a couple times and you stop the parts that you really liked, there's a lot in here, guys, on how I trade and what I look for, all right? There's a lot in here on how I trade and what I look for. Now, there's a couple things here that I really want to go over. Super micro SMCI, raised guidance, strong demand. Rack scale, AI. Anyone see a theme? Quarter, 540, 555. We were looking for 452, 440, 488. I mean, anybody want to do the math? They do it for you. Okay, 3.6, 3.65 versus 2.8. First was 2.7 to 2.9. Okay, 40% beat pre-announced. Anyone that's in this industry understands this. Anyone that's in any industry, in any publicly traded company, okay, you don't have to do this. Okay, they're saying 30 plus. You don't have to just the pre-announcement you should do. But they could push contracts forward to next quarter if they were worried. They're not worried. And that's why you got the move that you got. And that led me to us doing this. So this is where I type notes for the community, put out alerts after hours in here. There's also like a live alert room. Why am I showing you this? We started to see this at 3:30 at the end of the day in SMCI. We started seeing buyers step in. I thought it was based upon Taiwan Semi. We didn't have an idea. I didn't have a clue. SMCI bought, and we bought it after hours. I read the report. And I was just real clear, bought SMI, we'll hold it up after hours. I couldn't understand why the SOX, SOXL, was only up 9 cents. It made 0 sense to me. And people were like, well, people in the room were saying, well, SMCI is not in the SOX. Doesn't matter. The components in SMCI are in the SOX, hence why the SOX exploded on Friday. But SMCI 10%. This is my comments. Firm will have to raise numbers. How do I know this, right? How do I know this? Because I've been doing this a long time. I know the firms are going to have to come out the next day. I also know that firms are behind, and I'm going to show you how I know that firms are behind. I'm going to show you that in a moment. SMCI trimmed $10, still up in over 50% of it, still long there. New high of the day, new high of the day. And then I just start walking through it. SMCI, I'm up 20 after hours, and I'm holding. I'm adding at 8 p.m. Why am I adding? I'm cutting the socks and I'm adding. I'm also adding to NVIDIA and AMD after hours. Why? Because this was their NVIDIA moment. Whether or not you believe that or not, when you start beating by 40%, people start realizing that you have to understand what's happening here. Now, I also just want to walk through what we did and how we traded this during the day. The next day we came in and we just started going through this. AVGO looks next. I'm not going to get into all of it, but I want to start here with the good morning. So you can just see, like, these are the notes from the day. I'm not going to bore everyone with it, but this is me live trading, and you can just, we had some save calls overnight. We actually crushed it in those. We paid 50 cents for them, sold them for $2. And then we started buying AVGO and calls. I bought more SMCI long. I'm just going to show you a real quick clip on this so you can see what I was saying. I want you to watch the trade where I actually add to it, and then how I start reading price on options. If this is interesting to you, I may do a video on options and how I determine whether or not those options are cheap. For those that don't know or aren't aware, I was a registered options principal a long time ago for about 9 years. So I have a pretty good understanding of how the option market works, and it is what it is. Anyway, but just take a look at this clip and then we'll go from there. What a shocker that is, right? Might as well just buy more, bought more SMCI. I have no intent of selling that. I really don't. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to put it in a swing trade right now. But, you know, you have a $30, $40 stop there. But I just think you're just going to keep seeing the crap bought out of it, for lack of a better term, excuse my language. I mean, they absolutely crushed, guys. Like, there's very little to say about it. My hope was that you gap filled. You didn't. You flipped and you went. So I added to it. I'm not going to play games today. Boom. Who's a winner? I am. Who owns all the stocks that are going to break out and hit all-time highs today? I do. I think I'm up like $10 already in that ad. So I can do whatever I want with it at this point. If I want to kick it out, you made $10 from that ad. If you want to take that ad and kick it out, do it. You know, it's fine. You're hitting all-time highs. You got to realize you're going to be all over the place today, guys. So if you don't know what to do, just put a trailing stop on it. Like on a portion, I'll put a trailing stop of like $1 so that some kicks out. Like some just kicked out right there. Like I'll literally, that way I'm not playing with it, right? I'll just pull money out as it's going up. Right. So like, I don't have to stare at it all day because there's nothing about this chart that's telling me I can't come back down to 351, but I bought right in here and I just made $10. So instead of that, I'll just throw like $1 stop on it. And eventually it'll just rip some out of my hands and then I don't have to worry about it anymore. Hope that helps. Up 10, I sold some SMCI, just FYI, right? It'll rip it out on that's trailing stop. So I don't have to watch it. Yeah. They're just going to buy SMCI. Well, I shouldn't have peeled off any of that, probably. Oh, what's that remind you of? Remind you of anything else? Looks familiar, doesn't it? Wonder what happened after that broke out. SMCI and buying it. There is nothing wrong here with locking this in if you want to take the day trade. Like, there's zero wrong with that. I bought so much stock. I didn't think about buying call this morning. Oh, you can drive a truck through these things, huh? Jeez. I'm surprised the 400's are only $1.35. What are the 400s for next week? 10. See if you pull back. If you pull back the VWAP today, you might want to look at those 400s for next week. This is not going to be a one-day event. What are the 400s? What are the 19th for today? Don't want to get fancy. These options are insanely underpriced. 85s at $5. You're about to be in the money. Like, what are they thinking? Are they out of position? What are these 90s at? Like, this doesn't make any sense to me. Like, they don't think? There's no way. You're out of your mind. I bought a bunch of 90s for $5. I think they're out of their mind. I bought a bunch of the 90s for $5, 390s. I don't know what they're thinking with it like this. They're at 6 now. Do they not understand what's happening? I don't know how long I'm going to be in them. What are you thinking? $6 pulled something out of them already. You don't know how this plays out yet, but it just seems so ridiculously cheap for the move that it's had. So let's say, would you give up $6 after that move just to stay in it all day? I mean, who wouldn't do that? All right, here's what I did. Just FYI, I have this. I took my entire SMCI position. I have the entire position on. My entire position's back on in SMCI. And I just paid up. I took the 95s and I paid $6 for it. For the puts, 25, right? So instead of me getting shaken out today by like a 9 EMA 5-minute break or whatever, I've just given the whole trade up, right? If it can go to 350, it doesn't matter to me anymore because I'll just make money off the puts. I hope that makes sense. It should make sense because I actually do. I think this is going to go higher. I really do. I think you're going to get the fours today. All right. So now you understand where we are, what we've done, how we traded it. I'm still long this. I still have a very significant portion in all these names. I've done nothing with it. How can I tell that people are out of position? This is how I can tell people are out of position. And this is where it gets super interesting to me. I can tell they're out of position because what they're doing is they're realizing that NVIDIA sold a bunch of chips. right? So here, let me show you this. So this is from Goldman Research, reinstates AVGO buy, strong double-digit growth. Did that just happen? It just happened? No. What he's realizing is he's out of position. And you saw what happened with SMCI, and he went, oh crap, excuse my language, I'm out of position. So this is where it gets interesting. This is why I think that this is so similar. If you traded in the 90s, this is literally like watching like a mirror play out, like the early like 95, 96. It's crazy how similar it is, where people just don't believe. If you start to take a look here, AVGO broke out, and we actually did an AVGO trade. We saw that. We were up like 60% in the options, paid 34, and they closed at like 52 or something. The stock went up as well, this all-time highs. They're starting to look at the end user. Please listen to this. So what's starting to happen is you see SMCI, and they sell those supercomputers, right? So NVIDIA sells the chips to people, right? So people are going to get these chips. They're going to have them in SMCI products. They're going to have them in AVGO products. What we're starting to see is people buying these products that have the chips in them and then go out to, quote, the end user. So someone buys that SMCI piece of equipment. They buy that AVGO piece of equipment. This is where it gets fascinating. Like names like IGV, the IBMs of the world, the Dells of the world, well, you're going to need to do all the build outs all over again, right? Because now you're going to the end user. So when you start to compare this, it's so funny that I have Dell up here, but when you start to compare this to the 90s, we had Intel. Everyone had to have an Intel computer, their chip. AMD was crap at the time, excuse my language. And then, I just don't have a better term for it. And then you have Dell. Then you had Gateway Computer, which you guys probably don't even remember. And so you have Dell, you have Intel, you had to have Microsoft, you had to have Windows, right? All those pieces, all those stocks moved before the end user got ahead of it. And that's the same exact thing that you're seeing here. That's it.